Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole Laino. Hi there. Welcome. And before we get started with this month's episode on the transits, I wanted to call out if you are somebody who has been loving these transit episodes and you've been following along and you want to go deeper into your experience with how your human design gates show up in your life, understand how these transits affect you personally, not just from that global level that I'm talking about in these episodes, but to actually understand how your connections work and how to work through and step into the higher expression of these gates. Well, we actually have a really fun offer that we are releasing now where you can join us every single month, where we give you exact steps on how you can understand these energies, how they are showing up in your particular chart, and how you can work your way through these particular gates and these particular themes to understand how to bring them into a high expression in your life. If you would like to do that, DM me the words Gates Guide on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Laino Official, or go to NicoleLaino.com/Gates Guide, and we will give you all the information there and you can learn all about it. I hope to see you inside. Now, here's the episode. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole Laino, and it's me and the lovely Christina Luna here for you today, bringing you your cosmic weather report for September. We're very excited to bring it to you because it is Virgo season, and we are two Virgos here to deliver to you the message of our birth month, September. I'm so excited. Happy almost birthday to you.
Happy almost birthday to you too. I love September. It feels like the absolute most perfect month of the entire year.
I know. I was saying before we started recording, I was like, I feel so at home in this energy, but I absolutely felt that shift at the end of August, like around that 21st of August when we were shifting from Leo into Virgo. That was a very emotional week for me. That hit me hard. And I wanted to bring that up because it hit so many of my clients hard. We had a lot of in our Telegram chat for my Business by Design mentorship people, there was a lot of just and I remember I'm in Whole Foods and I'm writing this big, long text to my Telegram chat saying, guys, I know that things feel a bit crazy right now. Can you hang out before you pass judgment on what's happening? This is a very emotional week. We are in a super duper emotional time right now this week. Can you hang out for just a couple of days? And I'm not telling you that your feelings aren't real, but can you put a pin in it for just a couple of days and see if you feel like you need to burn it all to the ground and everything is really going to shit? See if you feel that way in a couple of days. Talk to me on Thursday and let me know how you feel. And we had a couple more people come in. They're like, thank God you said that. That made me see. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like my world was going to end. I had felt the exact same thing for one day. And usually for me, when we shift into a new gate, at least from the human design perspective, we shift, every gate goes through all the lines. It goes through line 1, line 2, like you're a 4-6, I'm a 5-1, goes through all of those lines. Line 1 resonates with fear. That is what it does. That is its energy. So the 6 days that we spend in a gate, the first day to me always feels a little funky and crunchy and scary. And to me, I just feel like this resonates with fear. And that's why the second day feels different and the third day feels different. And by the end of it, I feel very comfortable with whatever energy is happening. But that first day, particularly if it's something that hooks up to something else in your chart, or for your astrology, if it creates a challenging aspect, I'm sure that can feel even worse for you. So I wanted to call that out just because this is how you use this information to me. This is where it gets really useful, is to say, I'm not gaslighting myself and saying that I'm not feeling what I'm feeling, but let me hang out with this for a day or two, because what's happening right now is actually, for some people, they're not an emotional authority, but this connection makes them an emotional authority. So they're emotional all of a sudden and they don't know why. Well, now you know why. So maybe it's not the world is ending and you have to change anything. Maybe you just have to be a little kind to yourself, hang out for a bit, and let this pass, right?
Thank you so much for explaining that. Will make so much sense.
I don't know if it's crucial, like you could go up through life without it, but you definitely feel like you're in a boat with the waves crashing over you, as opposed to being like, oh, I understand that waves just happen and
Mhm.
that on the other side of it, there's better weather. That all being said, we've got September now. We're almost there as we're recording this right now. It's the 28th of August, but September is right around the corner, our birthdays and all of that juicy Virgo energy. Get your like label makers out, people. Get your journals. It's Virgo season. It's that time to go deep, to get cozy with yourself, get all earthy and grounded, and organize your shit. Because I feel like that's what I want to do in this season. I'm just like, we're getting it all tied up and we're getting it all ready for the finale at the end of the year. I feel like this is that moment.
And I think part of the reason why, because I myself was also very emotional at this turnover and my clients as well. I mean, my family. I think that what we forget about Virgo season is that we planted some seeds. We had this strong emotional intention, and we've traveled through 6 months of the manifestation cycle. So we usually have full moons. Well, we not usually, we always have full moons in Virgo in Pisces season. And then we
Mhm.
have full moons in Pisces during Virgo season. So that 6 month cycle is coming to an earth manifestation. So there
Mm.
are some real factual evidence that we are now witnessing, real factual evidences of things that we intended to experience in our life. And now that we're here, how is it actually feeling to us? I feel like August burned off a lot of illusions, a lot of dreams, a lot of passionate, wishful thinking. And when all of the illusion was burned off, we were left with the tangible reality of our own behaviors, other people's behaviors, the tangible reality of whether or not this had a return on our investment. And so
Mm.
there was some disillusionment that happened. And disillusionment often comes with emotional responses because we learned something. Every time we learn something, that means something we didn't have absolute certainty about has suddenly become a little more certain. And when we know something without a shade of an illusion, if our energy was fueled by the illusion, that energy fell apart and we were left with an emotional reality, with the truth that we found. So September gives you the raw materials to work with. Now that you know what you're working with, you know the variables, you have the raw materials, you've got the tangible evidence. What will you do? What's valuable now? And for some of us, that feels, well, at least I know what I've got now. And I'm one of those people. I like to actually have the materials in hand to know what I'm working with.
And I do feel that, and I feel like we've talked about this in these episodes on the show before, is that beginning of the year has a theme. These quarters that we go through in human design, we look at them that way. You have different quarters for astrology, but same themes is ideas, seeds get planted. We start to do the work. We start to lay the infrastructure. And now this is that point where we're saying like, okay, well, what do we want to run forward with? That quarter of duality, we call it. This is about relationship. But if you think about relationships, I think about it from a business standpoint. The way that I think about it is this is when you go out to sell your stuff. This is when you go out to start to tell people about what you're doing. But you've had to have come to some realizations in order to get to this point. And that's what the first half of the year, or almost 3/4 of the year, was all about, was about planting those seeds, figuring out what ideas you really wanted to run forward with, and then laying that foundation, and then coming now and saying like, okay, now I'm going to market. Now I'm going to put this out there. Now I'm really going to start to expand beyond just the idea and the planning phases.
Because you've got proof of concept. There's a buyer for it. It works. Or unfortunately, it didn't. At
Right.
least we know we have the answer now. If something worked or if it didn't, and it's moving on from what didn't work and focusing on absolutely what did work that Virgo's asking us to do. That's where the discernment comes in.
Exactly. Because I think Virgos are just innately, we're pretty practical people. We tend to very grounded is the vibe and the energy of high expression of Virgo. We can be perfectionist. There's all of those things too, but very grounded in the perspective of saying Virgos can be really good at getting to the heart of things, getting right to the core and saying, this is what's important. And I feel like that's what we're entering into now. And even from the human design gates that we go through during the month of September, I think they lend to this theme very well. So just to give like a landscape of what I see, like the little trip we're going to take together, all of us cosmically through the month of September from a human design perspective, we're moving in the beginning of the month, like we're starting out with community. We're starting out with some hard work with trying to figure out how do we put our work out in the world is one of the themes that happens here. And then we go into my world, which is gate 64, the gate of confusion. And then with its sister, the gate of doubt. But I'm here to tell you all that this is my land. This so feels like me that I'm just like, let me help you through this. I have something to offer you here. Because through confusion, we get clarity. Through confusion, if you're willing to stick with it long enough, you will be able to overcome doubt and you will find extreme clarity. That's the potential for that first week and a half period of September is to go through confusion. So the message is don't freak out. Don't try to fix it. Don't get yourself all up in a tizzy. That's the Virgo that nobody wants to hang out with, who's trying to fix it all. But can you hang out with it and just see what comes up and get curious about whatever comes up in that first week? And then that will shift into, we go from confusion to a realization. That's the next gate that we enter into around the 10th, which is, and I think that that's such a beautiful shift that we go through, and it's not an accident. We go from confusion and then we land at realization. And realization to me is about, we have a choice what we realize. There's going to be some sort of clarity that we get. We're going to come to some realization, but you get to choose whether the realization is positive or negative, like how you look at, like whatever you land with that 10th of the month, you have a choice then to decide, is this going to be something empowering for me or disempowering, no matter what the realization is. That is the big lesson for me of that 47th gate, that gate of realization. It's about mindset. That middle of the month, it's going to set the tone for everything else. It is your chance to tune your mindset to possibility and potential versus anything else. And I don't mean that everything works out. It doesn't mean that you're saying like everything is just rainbows and roses and unicorns. No, it's real, but you have a choice of how you look at whatever reality you're facing. You have a choice of what that means to you and how you look at it. And that to me is that message that we're getting there at the beginning there of that whole first half of the month. That is confusion to clarity to how am I going to choose to look at this for myself, looking forward at the rest of the year. What is my mindset going to be tuned to? I'm curious. I want to kick it over to you. What are you feeling like in that first half of the month? What do you see?
Well, I'm seeing in the first week of the month, it so fits that that's the week of this. We have the Night of Earth. This is like a student of Earth. We're learning. We've got some ability to mold the Earth, but we don't know exactly how we want to do it yet. So we're in a moment of contemplation, and that contemplation could create some confusion. And there's a lot of astrological, specific to this year, activity going on in that first week that is going to ask us to sit and pause for a moment. We should not trudge forward in that first week if we don't actually have the understanding of how every single step we take, every action we take, it's going to create something. So one of my teachers once said that the emotions of the gardener flavor the fruit that they plant. And so there's something to be said about this first week of acknowledging if you're feeling confused, is this an opportunity to take in what you're witnessing, take in what you're thinking about with new eyes, with a new perspective that perhaps could have you moving and acting in a way that you never have acted before, that could give you the sense of wonder instead of confusion. If confusion could be a gift, things are not appearing the way you always thought that they were before. That's what's confusing. And so there's some novelty that can be experienced in that first week of September. And when we're approaching things from a new perspective, a new vantage point, and taking the time to really respect that as a gift, what happens is we start becoming an inner steward of our life experiences in a different way. And when we move into the second week, we've got the queen. And queens are always about our internal process with something, how we're taking something into ourselves that's becoming a part of us. And so if we're experiencing the night or the confusion or the wonder, that's going to have us taking things in a whole new way that is going to reshape who we are. So there could be the second week, the realization is what you're calling it. This could be self-realization. This could be, oh, I am different. I feel different about this. I'm realizing that my perspective was shaping that the entire time. And as my perspective changes, it in fact becomes more authentic for me. It becomes more real for me. It becomes a part of me. I get to take it in as myself. And so the second week is going to bring some strong themes. And coincidentally, the 11th of September is when Mercury moves out of its shadow. And so a lot of the mining of the heart that we did in August will finally come to that crystallization of realization around the 11th. And we also have a quarter square in Sagittarius on that day. So there will be this like a sword of flames, a sword of truth that will hold inside of us that says, aha, this is who I am. This is what I am. And so I'm excited about those first 2 weeks. If we can take the confusion as a gift, that's a disruptor of every way that we thought things were before. And then if we are getting kind of just to the middle of the month, we head into the King of Pentacles, the King of Earth. And that's when the earth begins actually materializing from the new I am that we become.
I love that. And just to kind of piggyback on the confusion and don't get caught up in the confusion. Confusion is what you make of it. And I always say, like, the best way to deal with confusion is, look, Mom, no hands. I'm going to let go of the reins and I'm going to just let Jesus take the wheel. But we want to gently contemplate with curiosity, not criticism, not contemplating to get out of the confusion is the vibe. Can you just get really curious about what you're thinking, about what you're feeling? 64th gate of confusion looks backwards. It's always looking at the past, trying to make sense of it all so that now feels a little less crazy. So I completely agree with everything that you were saying and just wanted to add that curiosity, that wonder of, what is happening? What am I feeling? What do I really think about the past? What do I really think about these things that I've gone through? And I loved like that middle of the month when we're shifting into that middle of the month, like right around you're the 16th. Is that your birthday? 14th?
Mine's the 19th.
19th. You're at the end, but you're in that sixth gate territory, which is very emotional. This is an emotional pairing. So this might be a bit of an emotional week. It depends on who you are, but come back and listen to this. If you start to feel a little around the 16th of the month, that might just be you feeling this pairing of the sun being in the gate 6 and the earth being in gate 36, which is dramatic pairing. In its highest expression, this pairing of these two gates is really about that with every experience might come a little bit of drama, but it all works out in the end, that it all does resolve itself and there's always hope. And don't lose hope, because that's the trap with this one, is to feel like when the wave crashes, it's all over. So that's why I was saying it could be one of those dramatic, emotional sort of, what's happening? It's all never going to get better. It might be that. I'm not saying it will be. It might not be, but it might be. And if it is, just hang tight. Just chill out with it. Just be like, oh, Nicole mentioned this. What date is it? Oh, it's the 18th. Yeah. I'm totally in the middle of this thing. So, but hang with it. Christina, you might be fine because that's your energy. You might be like, this is my land. This is my world. I rock this. But for those of us, I have these in my charts too. And they've been huge lessons for me, the 6th and 36th gates. The 6th and the 36th gates also to me have so much hope, and they emotionally believe that an experience will lead to something good. And the only thing that can crush it is feeling like you got your hopes up too high. And when inevitably that high comes down, you start to think it'll never be the same again. and to recognize that that is just in your mind. That if you choose to look at it like I got to have the experience and I learned so much from it, then there's a reason and there's a purpose for it. There's not that letdown. The big trap with this is just don't get let down. Don't feel like I thought it was going to be and it didn't. You let yourself down or you feel like some situation let you down. That can just be those themes there. Again, highly emotional, about drama and conflict and also sex. They're very sexual gates. So you might feel a little hot and bothered and turned on and go with your bad self and enjoy yourself. Ride that wave, use that energy, because that's what it's there for, babe. That whole emotional roller coaster does resolve at the 21st with saying, okay, well now, what are you going to commit your energy to? Truly committing your energy to bringing something from thought, from emotion, from a dream, from a mission statement into reality. It's a commitment of your energy that will bring you results in whatever area you're looking for results in. And that's what that last week of the month teaches us, is it's like, okay, but now what are you going to commit your energy to? I don't mean that in like brute force, like, what are you going to do? It's like, how are you going to let what you commit your energy to change who you are? Change, up-level your identity by saying, I choose this. I'm going all in on this. That's the energy that we kind of resolve the month of September with.
I love that the astrology totally has our backs in this energy. You talked about it being emotional. The entire time I was like, yep, everything, every date that you mentioned, every energy that you mentioned, it all checks out. And there are all these, where's this so much support? So you mentioned the 16th, how it could feel like we're transitioning into this really emotional understanding, and Venus will be opposite Chiron that day. Our heart will be looking at our wound, and it'll be like looking across the table at, boy, I incarnated to feel this. This is the gap between what I incarnated to feel and where I actually am. And the sensation that we might feel on the 16th, but then astrology is sitting here and saying, don't worry, I got your back. I'm going to give you a full moon eclipse in Pisces on the 17th. So you can remember that on a long enough timeline, you can never fail. That being alive was the entire mission. That the fact that you even exist was the miracle. Pisces is always so filled with, even if you sweet human felt like something fell short, I want you to know that it was impossible for you to ever fall short because you actually became something, and that's enough. And on a long enough timeline, another very soothing message, it's soothing for me at least, a soothing message that the eclipse could bring is, on a long enough timeline, we're all going to be dust and no one will remember anything. Nothing will be left. And so what is it really for you? You don't have to worry so much about getting it right because no one's going to remember if you got it right. All that you have to know is that this moment is here for you. It's for you to experience. It's for you to explore. It's for nobody else. Something about that full moon, it's meant to give that kind of higher, really loving soul perspective on a very real, tangible, in the weeds human moment.
Can you talk a little bit about the significance of the energy that the full moon is in? And I know you just gave us like the specifics of what this means. I don't know if we've ever really given that kind of depth in these episodes before, but it might be useful to people listening to understand what is the significance of the full moon. I mean, we hear about full moon rituals and all of that. Are those helpful? What is the intention that someone can be setting at those times? And yeah, what are your thoughts on full moons and the significance that they play in each of the cycles?
So we're saying that the sun is in Virgo. So the sun's in Virgo, that means that the constellation that we're focusing on, that's the brightest in our consciousness, has to do with Virgo-like things, which is earth and mutable and all these things, right? We really understand that. But what we don't really think about is that the earth is sitting back into the opposite, the polarity of that. And the polarity of Virgo is Pisces. So we're always in these polarity moments. And sometimes the polarity is, from my perspective, anytime we feel a really polarizing moment, it's asking us to value both sides of the equation. to
Mhm.
understand the value of both sides of an equation. And when we really value both sides, we come into this center of ourselves. We become centered. And so polarizing moments help us to see, am I overvaluing one side of this equation more than the other? And if I am, I'm really going to feel it when we have polarizing events like full moons, because essentially what's happening is the sun is here, the earth is here. So Virgo is way out there. The sun is right in the middle, and then the moon is kind of sandwiching, like the bread is the sun and the moon, and the earth is in the middle, right? So the moon is emphasizing where the earth actually has been sitting this whole time. And so it'll bring our emotional understanding of that side of the polarity. It'll help us to value the body's experience of that side of the polarity, not just the mind's experience, because the sun is really telling us what our mind is focused on that month. So whatever sign you hear that the sun is in, that's what the mind is focusing on, but the body's always going to be anchored in the other polarity. So full moon moments are moments where we're meant to really tap in to any kind of polarities that we experience in our value systems to understand how we're out of balance, favoring one side of a polarity more than another. And why is that? What is that about for us? Because ultimately, being centered and valuing all parts of self equally is the most graceful, passion, beautiful point. The perfection point is really valuing everything.
So it's like it's balancing the energy. It's like we've been in the sun and there's, of course, the earth energy there. That polarity always exists. But now the moon is going to come in and it's actually accentuating that earth energy, giving it that full pull of the force of like, remember, I'm here too. The feeling that I'm getting from what you're explaining, like it's magnifying that earth energy and creating that counterbalance and letting us know where that middle is. So where are you overcorrecting? Where are you overemphasizing? And helping us maybe to find that balance through the way that we're internalizing these energies and understanding them for ourselves.
Yeah. So a lot of people will do full moon rituals, and some of the more like accessible ways of talking about moons is that there's a seed planted at the new moon.
Yes.
You get the first crisis at the first quarter moon, where you wonder if you have the resources to bring it to fruition. You get the full moon that shows you the first tangible evidence, the kind of evidence of your seed. And then you get the last quarter where you take the information, you let the project die, and you prepare for the next seed. So the last quarter is always like, well, what did I learn from this process? The first quarter is, what do I need to be for this process? So the full moon is like, what's actually happening here? And the reason I like to think of it as a moment to feel into our values is because my goal is always to find grace. When I'm over polarized, I oftentimes have less grace in my life.
I love that. And I had never heard anybody explain the moon cycle like that. I mean, I'd heard, obviously, like we said, our intentions, we're planting the seeds at the new moon. I've understood that part. The full moon is we're letting go and we're saying, like, what is no longer necessary for me? And I'm shedding these things are sort of the tips and things that I've seen out there. But I'd never heard anybody explain it the way that you just did. And I really like the way that you tied that up of the full cycle and not just thinking about it new moon, full moon, but actually that it's kind of a whole mini cycle that we're going through, what we talk about in these transits for in context of the year and then in context of the month. That this is like a little mini version that we go through every month.
So the new moons are always going to be in the place where the sun is. So we have our first new moon for September. We have it on the 2nd. That's going to be a little seed. It's going to be a very Virgo seed because the sun and the moon are going to be really close together, and they're going to be focusing all of our attention on the temple of Virgo in our lives. And for every single person, that temple of Virgo shows up in a slightly different place. So every single year when the new moon in Virgo happens, which usually only happens once. Occasionally you'll get 2 new moons in a sign. It's rare, but it sometimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have that, we only really have this one shot to plant a little seed of intention with so much concentrated energy. And then we go through the motions of the quarter. The first quarter, like I said, is on the 11th. That'll be a crisis of what's true for us. Because honestly, Virgo seed wants us to be in integrity. It wants us to be in integrity with who we really are. So the first square is saying, am I in integrity with my truth? I can only become the fullness of this Virgo individuated, perfected being if I'm actually in integrity with my truth. So we get that checkpoint right as Mercury ends its shadow. And so we realize our truth has more to do. It's more than just what we think. It's more than just being
Mm.
aligned with our beliefs. It has to also be in alignment with our heart's commitment, what our heart believes is true. So that's this quarter checkpoint. So oftentimes things will happen in our life that challenge this. We'll be tempted to tell a white lie. We'll be tempted to make a decision that is not really in alignment with our values because it's
Mm.
easier or it doesn't cause waves or we don't want to hurt someone or something like that. There'll be some kind of crisis where we'll be tested and we get these tests every single moon cycle. And if we take the test personal or we take it seriously, we'll notice and we understand, well, what's the energy of this? First was my seed to be in integrity with myself. Is being in integrity with myself being aligned with ultimately my guiding principles? Well, then obviously the answer to the test is easy, even if it's hard. It's an easy answer with hard behavior. And whatever choice we make on the 11th is going to illuminate the results that we get on the full moon in Pisces. The full moon is saying, on a long enough timeline, the character that you play as Christina isn't going to exist anymore, but your soul will endure. Do you feel that your soul is in integrity in this life? That's all that matters. Whether it worked out or it didn't work out or the goal was hit or blah, blah, blah. Was I in integrity? Because that was the seed that I planted. If I was in integrity, then freaking yes. Then what else is possible? Because now I can build into the next new moon that will happen in Libra. And that's a new moon where I take the integrity of who I am into the relationship and co-creation with you. And hopefully I have enough discernment to know that you're in integrity with yourself too.
Right. I love this. It does give us like a new layer to look at this through and to use these moon cycles to be asking these questions, which I love. Like, what seed am I planting? I think is a really strong question for everybody to ask at that new moon. And that'll be coming up on the 2nd of September. So people getting in tune with, what am I being called to? What is the intention that I'm setting? What is the seed that I'm planting right now? What is that intention that we're setting there? And then checking in with that, I guess, around the full moon is checking in with, well, where am I with this? Reflecting on that intention. How does it sit with me now? I love these sessions that we do. I love these episodes that we do together. The fact that we get to give both sides of this equation, the human design and the astrology side. I love that we get to bring this to everybody. So you have something coming up that you wanted to mention to everybody. What is the offer that you have coming up, this new program that you have coming up for the fall?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. I'm going to lead some individuals into studying themselves, studying their recipe through the lens of astrology. So it's going to be a immersive group exploration of understanding who you are and what your recipe is. And that's starting on the 20th, I believe, of September, right around the equinox. And then we're going to do it all the way through the fall. So we're going to go into the mystery of who we are through the fall. So if anyone's interested in that, please DM me about that.
So at lunation.live, DM Christina, and you can find out more details about that program. I'm sure it will be awesome. There's nobody better to lead you through this stuff. So thank you guys so much. We will actually be having, I'm just going to let everybody know, we have the Authority Accelerator Masterclass coming up on the 16th. So we're going to hold you for a week through that, what could be emotional and chaotic and exciting and all of the drama. I will hold you through that. We'll take you through, we'll guide you through, and then we'll round out with some bonus sessions for you there. But the Authority Accelerator Masterclass, that is my free 5-day masterclass where I take you through building a business according to your human design. I do it all for free over the course of a week. You walk away understanding how to build your $1 million message and your business based on your gifts. And it is fabulous and everybody loves it. All you have to do to register is DM me the word masterclass on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Laino Official, or go to NicoleLaino.com/masterclass and you can register right there on the website. Christina, thank you for being here as always. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, listener, for making it to the end of this episode with us. We appreciate you. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everybody. We'll see you next time. If you loved this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community. Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to NicoleLaino.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.